Everybody. Very good afternoon to every one of you here in Hong Kong, and greetings to all participants who are joining us virtually. Welcome to Dive In. Dive In is a global movement in the insurance sector to support the development of an inclusive workplace cultures. The purpose is raising and promoting positive awareness of diversity in all shapes and form. This year's Dive In, the theme in Hong Kong is fostering psychological safety. My name is Alpha Ho. I'm the Corporate Development Manager at the Chartered Insurance Institute, and I'm very honored to be the host for this afternoon. We're delighted to be introducing Mr. Alan Valence, our new Chief Executive for the Chartered Insurance Institute. Alan is joining us today virtually, but if he had known that we've implemented the 0+3 measurements in Hong Kong, I'm sure he would have been the first to have flown here in Hong Kong in person. So may I please direct everyone's attention to a welcome remarks from Alan.
Hello everybody, I'm Alan Valence. I'm the Chief Executive of the Chartered Insurance Institute, and it's my very great pleasure to welcome you all to our event here today as part of the Global Dive-In Festival around diversity in the insurance profession. Very pleased to be able to talk to you today. I'm relatively new to the organisation and looking forward to working with everybody and meeting as many people as I can from our membership around the world, and obviously in Hong Kong in particular. The Chartered Insurance Institute as a professional body provides guidance and best practice. Our aim is to show people what good looks like, enabling building of public trust in the insurance profession. Our professional standards have as one of their core duties of in the Code of Ethics, core duty number 5, a real importance around treating people with respect, regardless of where they come from and other diverse characteristics. So it's really important that events like today give us all the opportunity to become much more aware of issues and to be aware of the challenges faced by firms when they're embedding equality, diversity and inclusivity practices in their firms. Understanding what the opportunities are and how to make sure we're all working in inclusive workplaces. Ownership of EDI, both as an individual, a professional, and within your organisation, promoting EDI is really, really critical. And I really support the initiative of the Dive-In Festival. I think there are events in something like 35 countries around the world in the 7 years that the event's been up and running. So I'm really pleased that the Chartered Insurance Institute is playing its part. Very much hope that you enjoy the session today and that you take as much of it out of it as you can. I'm very pleased that we're able to support that, and I hope you really enjoy the session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Alan, for your remarks. We would like to now invite our festival partners of Dive In Hong Kong 2002 to come on stage to take a group photo to open up our event this afternoon. First of all, I'd like to invite Mr. Kenny Sue, our Regional Director, Hong Kong and Asia Pacific Chartered Insurance Institute, to just come up to kick us off. And please, may I start inviting the following companies and representatives to come on stage. Mr. Owen Wong from the British Consulate General. Miss Joni Ko from Kennedy's. Mr. Z Lim from Marsh. Mr. Samuel Hong from RPC. Mr. Trevor Smith from the Orchard Partnership. Miss Iris Chan from WTW. Miss Terry Lau from Yet Commercial Partners. Also, may I invite Mr. Dennis Wong from Meritus Insurance Consultants, Mr. Quinton Howe from Metis Global Group, Mr. Glenn Turner from Altris Financial Group, Mr. Kadeem Khan from Circles Group, Mr. Arnold Yeung from AMG Wealth Management, Mr. Yip Wen Gay from Zhong Sing Benevolent Society, Mr. Dickie Kwong from DFG Dynasty Financial Group, Mr. Danny Zhe from Athena Best Financial Group, Mr. Philip Wong from Chifu Wealth Management, and finally Mr. James Wong from Financial Corporation. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Okay, and we're just going to take a few minutes to set up the stage fairly shortly. Thank you. Okay, once again, thank you very much and welcome everyone to joining us this afternoon. I'd like to kindly remind everyone, participants here on stage, to use Slido to scan the QR code for any questions during the Q&A session. The QR code is actually located in your agenda booklet, page 4, and it's actually also in the front of chair in front of you. To participants who are joining us virtually, please use the Q&A tab in the right-hand corner of your screen, which connects to Slido automatically. Now, please allow me to introduce to you the first speaker for today, Ms. Iris Chan, Head of Corporate Risk and Broking, Hong Kong and Macau, Executive Director, Construction, Hong Kong, Macau, and Macau at WTW, who will be delivering her presentation about psychological safe working cultures. So without further ado, let's welcome Iris on the stage.
That's quite far away, so I take off my mask. Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and my name is Iris. That's one of very important title. To add to that list, I am the leader of I&D Hong Kong for WTW, and I think that it's one thing I'm really proud of. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Give me a chance to share some idea from myself as an employee, as a business leader, and also as a wife, as a mom of my son, and as a friend. Obviously, my background is insurance broking, not psychologist. So today, what I'm sharing with you is our experience, what we have been come across, and also we got a lot of information from our colleagues and they're sharing a lot of material with me in this particular subject about psychologically safe working culture. So in the presentation, I will generally put it in like 3 areas. The first area that it's how this psychologically safe work culture linked to people's happiness and as well as our sustainable business environment. The second one that will be the challenge we encountered, what happened. And the third that will be share some strategy, which is some I read from internet, some our company actually implementing. So probably enough of my face. Okay. From March 2019 to 2020, that was social unrest, protests. And from January 2020, that's the first COVID case. And 26th September 2022, 2 days ago, what is that? What is that? Cancel hotel quarantine. So this is the picture. What I want to show you is We think we have been walking in quite dark and wet tunnel, and now we're very close to see the bright night. And is that the time is past, we don't need to think about psychologically safe work culture anymore? Of course not now. So what happened to us in the past, this period of time, this turbulent time? 1 in 7 Hong Kong people, they suffer from mental unwell. 1 out of 7. I'm not sure whether you have that experience. I declare I had that experience. Feel unwell, feel anxious, couldn't sleep because of all different types of stress. According to WHO, they even quantify the financial impact, they estimate the financial impact, what did some global mental crisis that bring to us. So they quantified it and estimated for the period from 2010 to 2030, they imagined the entire economy will spend 16, not million, trillion US dollar. So in where? For example, like medical, law suitcase, legal cases, productivity loss, profitability loss, and also hospitalization, surgery, medication. So many things add together that's caused by this global mental health crisis. So instead now we come to the end of it. And what is the problem? Feeling unsafe. And how does it actually affecting organization that much? So let's start from that series of unfortunate event. Pandemic. I'm sure everyone have that experience. That feels like you hear your friends' family, their family suffer from illness or death. That make all these issue closer to us. Isolation and also social distancing. Generally, in Chinese New Year, as Chinese, we have big gathering at least for 3 days, if not 4. But in the past few years, it's all been restricted. We are sitting at home watching TV, and we can do a Zoom call. Social distancing doesn't help. Support. And can we go back to office, talk to our colleague, talk to our friends? Oh, I feel very stressful. So what can you help me? So even those house we previously always we share, we talk about, in that period, getting less and less. That is part of the reason because of social distancing. Uncertainty. Of course, I just talk about booking air ticket. So you even don't know after you book the ticket, you can go or you couldn't go. And you don't know what happened tomorrow, whether you can still have that dinner with your friend, with 9 people. There's a lot of uncertainty. Children couldn't go to school. That is a big uncertainty. Social media. Yeah, we always look at our screen. A lot of social media. And also social media, they associate mental illness to violence, to inherent dangerous to our society. And that doesn't help at all. Because of all these events, and that lead to people start to loss of trust to other human being, lost trust to your company, lost trust to, oh, if that sort of treatment actually could help me, even the treatment. And at the end, everything come back will be stress and anxiety. Job security will be a lot of issue for quite a lot of people in Hong Kong. They may lose their job, in particular those in retail, those in travel, so they lost job. And also family pressure. I don't know how many times you stay at home. So you are doing your Zoom call, and your children, they're also doing your Zoom class. So mom and dad become tutor as well, not only work at the office. So that is a tremendous stress. To me, that is crazy. Financial, people lost job, economy is not well. It feels like everything is dark. Not really many things happens make we smile and think that's great, other than 2 days ago what we heard. And that, when people suffer from mental unrest, mental unwell, like what I just said, not really sleeping well for a long period of time, feel tired, previously something you really passionate about, and now lost interest, depressed. So a lot of symptoms that could come out because of actually this is just mental unwell. It's no different from we have a flu, we have a cold, is unwell. And stress of uncertainty, what happened to when you feel stressed, when you feel uncertain? For me, I think the reaction would be, I'm not really want to work. And I guess that's usual. Yeah, I'm not really want to work. I don't want to dig in too much of those things. If that's difficult, I don't want to touch. And also, if that it's a plan for career. So when you're tired, when you couldn't sleep, when the family's so unsettled, how could you plan? And people lost the energy, lost the focus, and come to happiness. They're not happy, they are sad. How could you expect your colleagues, they actually could perform, excel at work, to drive the business, to be more productive, to be more innovative? So that's why I think, the psychological, to create a psychologically safe working culture, it's not just for humanity, but that is the most important thing. But also that link to our daily work, that link to our business, and how to encourage productivities and creativities. So my conclusion, I know I got 20 minutes. I'm not stopping right here. But I want to say my conclusion is psychologically safe culture that led to happiness and also led to sustainable business. So now we are almost, as I say, we almost see the bright light. After 3.5 years, and we almost see the bright light. In that period, we actually virtually holding hand to support each other. But now is the time to accelerate. We are not only virtually holding hand to support each other, we actually can physically shake hand now, I think, almost, to each other and support each other. So it's time to review our strategy in creating a psychologically safety culture and accelerate the action we're going to take for that topic. I want to show that. Okay. So what is actually, what is mental health? Maybe a lot of definition. So I just copy one from WHO. So I want you to read it with me. Mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes her or his own ability, can cope with normal stress of life, can work productively, and is able to make a contribution to his and her or her community. So mental health, actually, we are talking about normal stress. We are talking about ability, productivities, contribution. So is it create a safety working culture means we need to create a very comfortable work environment? Would anyone say that? Would you think to create a safety, psychologically safety work culture equal to a comfortable work environment. So I read another article. Talk about that. Mental health safety is not the same as feel comfy. It's not feeling comfortable at work. But actually is being take a bit of reasonable risk, increase productivities. So comfort is different from safe. Discomfort is different from dangerous. So the optimum is we have a bit discomfort, we push a bit, push the organization and our colleagues actually can work out of their comfort zone a little, bit by bit, but in a very safe environment. Then what will be the result will be our people, that's how people grow and progress. You're actually helping them. Accelerate our action, review our strategy. I try to have this topic have a lot of article, a lot of data to talk about this topic, and try to consolidate it into 3 areas. One is trust. Second is collaboration. The third, that is ongoing stress management. Now we are working on reviewing our strategy, enhance it, accelerate our action. Then I would suggest we probably could think of in these 3 areas. Have you already have a strategy going to implement? And when are you going to implement them and how? Let's talk about care and support. So trust, that it's, I would say trust, I would go to 3 areas. One is give love, give care, support our colleagues, and empower our colleagues. We realize that everyone's different. So how much stress you can take? We are all emotionally different. It's no one size fit all. And also because of the family background, the stress source are different. So that's why I always believe that we need to have care and support program and need to be more specific to different group of people based on their background, based on their emotional fitness. Empower our colleagues that create trust, because of you trust them, you trust they can do what they could do. And also trust is the very fundamental to avoid isolation. Openness. As a leader, I believe all the leader will need to be the model to open up, to speed up. And if you feel that it's you're not right today, leader also can tell everyone, I'm not feeling well today. Yeah, they don't need to be a hero all the time. And so this is a culture in the organization. Everyone speed up, can tell each other what you feel, what you think, your idea. That is extremely important. And also in respect of strategy, leader build strategy and also they build policies around. And those policies and idea always, decision making always will need to be consistent. When I say consistent, that is, if the company say we want to be helpful, we want to be open, we want to take a bit more risk, then decision, policy will need to be aligned to what you say. Inclusion, absolutely. Discrimination should not be allowed in any organization. And we also should encourage, engage underrepresented group in the organization, and no discrimination, of course, to any people suffer from mental unwell. that is we start to build trust. Collaboration. Collaboration, I always use teamwork linked to collaboration, because when you have a cohesive team, they will support each other, they will talk to each other, they build up friendship, and also they will respect each other. And that will avoid isolation and avoid people being antisocial. Focused on mental unwell, it's in a team structure. Basically, it's not about focus on whether you have mental unwell, but your colleagues will be easier to identify if you have any bad feeling and talk to you, because of sometimes it's very hard for the management, your manager, suddenly walk around and see, oh, today you have a sad face, let's have a chat. I think normally we talk more and chit-chat about issues with our teammate more than anybody, because of they are friends. So that's why to build teamwork is not only the only way to increase productivities, and also that will help on mental and well as well. Other than that it's connecting silo functions and profit center. As you know, we work in organization. We have a lot of different profit center. We have silo functions. And people, not necessarily they mix. And sometimes when one function in a very stressful time, very, very busy, and also they're not allowed to implement some of the work the other function wants them to do. But because of they are silo, they don't care. I want the result. So in that sort of environment, actually, it's quite difficult to manage stress for everyone. So in more ideal world, that would be all this silo function, they actually link up, and then they know each other. They also would have a bit of empathy on situations to each other. Collaboration creates risk-taking culture, encourage innovation, and also they expand people's comfort zone. I think that's the one to ensure people working together, they are friends, they have happiness, and then also work together well. The last one, that is the ongoing stress management. I would say that including well-being, coaching, and also companies' policies. Well-being, that it's, for example, I can share with you a lot of well-being activities. So with our firm, with WTW, we have in 2 years' time, from 2019, we have close to 30 well-being activities been organized and participate by our colleagues, 30, in such a short period of time. Mainly those well-being that in like 2 areas. One that is linked up to care, engage, and also team building, build spirit. The second one is more self-help, well-being. Give you some example, see if you like them. Care and engagement. So at the office, sometimes we have Chinese soup station. Yes, a lot of people, they don't have Chinese soup at home. They don't have time to do it. So we actually find some vendor and provide different types of really hot Chinese soup. Our colleagues love it. Maybe you think that's such a small gesture, but this, I can assure you, people likes it. We have Chinese massage section. So we actually have someone sitting in the office, in a conference room, doing massage for shoulder. Yeah, sometimes. So they may not able to release your painful muscle, but that is care enough. We have a lot of sports, even this period. For example, like we do rock climbing, we do hiking. We also participate in charity like tree planting, We do training courses, yoga, breathe in, breathe out at night, all this. So, and we also emphasize colleagues should have a break. Should have a break like during the day, if you feel stressed, do the breathe in, breathe out 5 minutes section. And also we encourage colleagues to take vacation. So a lot of things we can share, we can help colleagues. And also, when I say self-help, we have seminar, webinar to talk to how you talk to your children. And we have webinar about, of course, yoga, everyone do it. We also have a webinar and about how to manage your own stress, to do self-help. Coaching, the other very important topic is coaching. Because of in this changing environment, the boss high up, Pop is not the most stressful person. The one in the middle, in this changing environment, they shoulder a lot of stress. So we need to support this layer of people. We need to give them some idea, for example, how to identify and also address if you find your team, your colleagues have mental unwell issue that bother them. And how you can encourage your colleague to speed up. And they also have a lot of stress themselves, so that's why we need to help them. And also we encourage mentoring program, do one-on-one mentor program, and encourage colleagues to talk. Last but not the least is company policy. I mentioned about company policy need to be in line with the strategy on how we're going to create and accelerate this action to maintain this psychologically safe working environment and this culture. Work-life balance, I think a lot of companies thinking of work-life balance, work style, work from home. I think that's good. That's able to manage stress and help colleagues as well to better manage the time. But also bear in mind, be always alert. If you're doing too much, could be actually creating disconnect, affecting teamwork. So we need to have balance as well. Financial support. Give more money? I'm not talking about this type of financial support. I'm saying, do you realize majority of medical insurance do not cover, you go to visit social worker, you go to visit psychologist because of you feel mental not well, unwell. So if the company actually can support in that way to organize, to ally some psychologist or social worker, when the colleagues actually feel something, they don't need to be paid, they just give a call and have consultation. That would help. Third, it's always open and always listen. I think that's as in organization, as a friend, as a mom, as a wife, that is always important. And this is all my share. I know I have not much time, but if you have any question, yeah, please.
Any questions on the floor for Iris? Okay. Well, I think that's all for now. Thank you very much, Iris, for your insightful presentation. Now let me invite Kenny to present to you a token of appreciation, just in the front of stage leader. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Iris, for an insightful presentation. Now, we'll move on to our first panel discussion. Mind the Generational Gap, Breaking Down the Hierarchies, moderated by Ada Low, Senior Vice President, Head of APAC Pricing, Allied World. Now, let me please invite Ada onto the stage. And also, I'd like to invite our distinguished panelists to come on stage as well. Ms. Joni Ko, partner at Kennedy's, Mr. Vincent Chow, Senior Associate at Kennedy's, and Mr. Joe Chan, Senior Service Desk Administrator at Allied World.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today here in Causeway Bay. We've got 4 panelists here, including myself. We've got Joni, Vincent, Joe, and myself, Ada Louie. Our topic of discussion today is minding the generational gap, breaking down the hierarchies. So within the insurance and the legal industries, and even as I look around the room today, we've got 4 different generations that are working side by side. We've got some baby boomers still around from 1946 to those born up to 1964. Gen X, people who were born between 1965 to 1980. Gen Y, who are better known as the millennials, 1981 to 96. Gen Z, who are also known as Zoomers, who were born in 1997 to 2012. And I do not think there are any of these here today, the Gen Alphas, who were born from 2013 onwards. But they are our up-and-coming generation and our children, basically. So with such a wide difference in the age gaps between the generations, we definitely expect to see quite a lot of differences in the attitudes and the behaviors towards work, because each of these generations have essentially experienced a completely different history in time. And so to help us delve deeper into this, we'll firstly introduce ourselves, our names. We're going to go around and just tell you, what generation we're from, and also the portable music player that we grew up with. So maybe we'll start with Vincent.
Okay. Hi, my name is Vincent Chow. I'm a senior associate at Kennedy's, so I am in Joni's team. I was born in the early 90s, so I'm a millennial for sure. So before this panel, I actually did some sort of searches on Google as to what sort of defines millennials or what are the stereotypes, and unfortunately, a lot of them hold true. I'm on my phone all the time, even before bed, or that's the only thing I do before bed, even. But I mean, at the same time, not all of them hold true. I mean, I think there's a stereotype that the millennials are quite jumpy or hoppy with work. I'm at Kennedy's since day one of my career, as with Joni, and because it's such a great firm, obviously. And so, I mean, Kennedy's really formed a big part of my life. And I'm at the stage of my career as a mid-level associate, trying to sort of bridge the gap between sort of younger associates or even trainees and perhaps partner-level people. And in terms of my first memory of portable music player, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is really sort of MD sort of Walkman players and whatnot. But I think the first one that I actually own is actually an MP3 player. I think it was 50 songs, something that they can hold. But now with Spotify and all that, it probably isn't anything, isn't it? Thanks, Eddie.
My introduction is going to be a little bit different. My name's Joni Ko. I'm a partner at Kennedy's. I lead the financial lines and cyber team, and a very key member of my team is Vincent. I do have a diverse team, half male, half female, all of whom are millennials. No doubt we'll be seeing more Gen Z along the way. As you said, maybe not Gen Alpha yet, but I mean, it highlights the importance of the topic today. But back to my self-introduction, I am the only Gen X on the panel, which makes me feel mature. Funnily enough, I was reminded where I fit on the generational scale because, you know, to me, museums are for dinosaur skeletons and fossils and artifacts, but I've actually seen some of the things that are on display at M+, like Tamagotchis and sliding Nokia phones.
The ones that never break.
Portable music. I do remember Walkmans, but I don't claim to have had a cassette Walkman. My vivid memory of portable music is probably a Discman in my teens. So over to you, Joe.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Joe. I've been working in Allied World for 5 years as a IT service desk. It's been great so far, and I'm from Gen Y, millennial. First kind of portable music I would think is Sony Ericsson's Walkman, different to the ones that Ada has been mentioning to me. And also Vincent's MP3 players as well.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I was going to mention that. I'm technically from the millennials, but I think I identify more with the Gen Xers. And I'm really surprised that Joni said that she did not own a Walkman, because I definitely grew up with a Walkman that used cassettes, not MP3s.
I lived in Australia. Australia had very slow imports, I think.
Me too. and also the Discman. But yeah, okay. Thank you, everyone, for your introductions. One of the common observations that we do have, and I think everyone in the room probably shares this, is that about the millennials and also for Gen Z, is that what they're looking for is flexibility a lot of the time. And one of the ways that companies obviously have been giving some level of flexibility now is by offering work from home policies and allowing them to do so, to give them back some of their time. And law firms and the insurance industry as a whole, I think the take-up in Asia has historically been really slow. And, you know, again, I don't think anyone's going to deny that. But COVID really acted as a major catalyst to push us forward and kind of force our hand, essentially. But on the flip side of that, it really helped us to realize that actually, hey, you know, maybe this is actually viable. It can work. And so going forward, we're facing these challenges. There's also now companies out there who are actually offering employees a work from anywhere option, not just a work from home, for a period of time each year. So it's a really interesting time that we're going into. So I think Joni and Vincent, if you can maybe share a little bit about the Kennedy's journey on this.
Sure. We certainly have some of the policies that you mentioned, but I think my impression, at least pre-COVID and probably now, is that Gen X, probably baby boomers, still have the feeling that workers are more productive in the office, and certainly there are benefits of collectively being in the office together. But as you said, COVID has turned the concept of working remotely, working in the office, on its head. And using Kennedy's as an example, because we know it well, some teams were paperless pre-COVID, and some were not. So some were able to seamlessly move from working in the office to work from home. But as a result of COVID, we've now adopted a global policy of hybrid working. So basically, there are no minimums, maximums. You can't 100% work from home, because then your office address has to be at home. But other than that restriction, it offers flexibility for however our practice area might want to allow hybrid working. It's really helpful in attracting talent or retaining talent, because it gives new parents, for example, the flexibility of juggling their obligations at work and their obligations at home. And for us in our team, the flexibility has worked really well. We previously had a roster thinking that, we had to have one person in the office each day to collect mail, answer the call, sign letters. But in fact, that meant we didn't see each other. So now what we do is we work from home on similar days, and we're all working in the office on similar days, so that we actually look forward to seeing each other, I think. And when we are together, there's a very good vibe, and there's a collaborative atmosphere that I personally find very enjoyable.
Yeah, just to add to that sort of retaining talent and probably sort of recruiting talent sort of point. I mean, it does seem that flexible working is quite a deciding factor for sort of younger generations when choosing to stay at a job or to start a new job, for example. There seems to be a feeling that there's no sort of desire to be sort of stuffed in a cubicle sort of thing. So I can back that up with some research which I found online. I mean, it really has showed that sort of flexible home working policies are one of the main factors that sort of younger generations consider when deciding whether to accept a job. I mean, in particular, the Gen Z or Zoomers, right? I mean, money is not always a top priority. Obviously, you work to earn money, but that's not always the top on the list. Instead, the list includes sort of flexibility to work from the office and remotely, wellness and mental health initiatives, as well as sort of meaningful work and culture. I mean, some of these we'll talk about later, but I mean, in terms of flexibility, which we're sort of focusing at the moment, I mean, to me, it doesn't take the same shape or form in every single work environment. It can be different depending on sort of the industry you're in, the sort of company that you work at. But what is important, I think, is really to have sort of for managers really to support the teams in whatever form that should work for them, and how in the sense that the team would benefit from such sort of policies. For example, at Kennedy's, as Joni has just talked about, I mean, we have quite a flexible sort of working sort of environment in terms of work from home and whatnot. I mean, in the past, obviously, there were some pushbacks, and some partners may think, and this is real, that if you do work from home on a Monday or a Friday, it means you're having a long weekend, innit? But I think that sort of mentality is slowly sort of going away, which I think is a good step. And I think once you've started implementing that sort of policies, right, people will start to realize he or she is still working very hard at home. In fact, they might be working even longer hours, perhaps, yeah.
Great, thanks. Joe, is there anything that you want to share as well on this topic?
Actually, yes. So I had a cousin who went back to the UK for 2 weeks for holiday, and he ended up stuck in the UK for 3 to 4 months because they're changing policies. His flight was cancelled, but then he was actually able to work quite well. Even he was in the UK and he was supposed to work in Hong Kong. And then I think I told that to my brother, who's only 10 years older than me, and he was quite shocked that, why he's able to work in the UK. He's supposed to not be in the office to work. Told that all to my uncles or my aunties as well, and they were quite shocked. So I think it's quite a different views from a different generation that they see work from home. It's a luxury, I think, from the elderlies. But whereas we would think it's a normal thing now.
Yeah, thanks. That's a really interesting, I think, mindset to try to break. And I think we are being forced to do that in some way to really move forward. So it's good to hear about that. One of the other challenges of having different generations in the workplace that we found, particularly ourselves, is that there is a hierarchy that exists in organizations, and how do we tap into some of these ideas, particularly from a younger generation, in order for our workplaces to continue to grow and to thrive, to have different ideas coming through. So at Allied World, we've been looking at different ways of collaborating within the company, and recently we had a go at implementing a new project initiative that's called the Customer Movement. And what we did was we looked for volunteers around all of our APAC offices, and we said that you'd be learning a new way of problem solving, and the intention is really to focus on how do we better serve our customers' needs, and ultimately it's about the customer. But as part of this, what we did, we said, okay, we want you guys to give a small time commitment over a fixed period of time, and each volunteer, we want that from, and basically we saw quite a large number of volunteers, people putting up their hands to say, hey, we'll have a go, and that was really positive to start with. We created teams to then look at various customer problems from different lenses, and in order to try and encourage more of that open discussion and really to kind of break down that hierarchy, we actually took out all of the management. There was no management in any of the day-to-day work. We also mixed up all the teams. They became cross-functional. It was not kind of driven by the functions, but driven by really the people that were putting up their hands. And when we set out on this journey, one of the things is that we were quite uncertain as to whether it would be a success or whether it would be a failure at the other end. And we, as a management team, really has set out and said, okay, we actually are not going to focus on what that outcome is, but we're going to look at what the learnings are and focus on that learning journey for everyone as a whole, for the company. And so Joe was one of the volunteers for this initiative, and so he's here today to share a little bit, I think, about that process. And Joe, can you tell us a little bit about why you volunteered in the first place?
So it's mainly because it's problem solving, and as IT, we solve a lot of problems every day. So as a design thinking, so different ways to see how we can learn different techniques and skills to problem solve basically, and as well just to meet other colleagues that I don't normally get to meet on a daily basis.
So was it kind of what you expected, the process? How did you find it? Were there some challenges that you came across?
There's some problems within the issues that we had. So we weren't sure whether it was the right direction that we were thinking, but we kind of just thought, let's just pull it out on a table. We don't care. We didn't really care who if this is a manager in a team, we could just pull it out on the table and then say, okay, this is the problem, and then, okay, we can talk about it. And we all just kind of talked about it and agreed, let's have that in the project anyway. It's no harm, and then we just kind of carry on as well.
Right. Did you, I guess, did you guys have to spend a lot of time on this compared to the initial commitment that we asked for?
So I think originally allocated about an hour to 2 hours every week, but then I think we spent a lot more than that just trying to get the project done. On top of the day-to-day work as well.
Yes, you guys were all very enthusiastic. Was there anything that you kind of took away from it that you want to share with everyone today?
So as the IT in Hong Kong office, I kind of know the basics of what our colleagues do on a day-to-day basis. Having this project gave me the opportunity to kind of dive in deeper on how they work every day. So it kind of gave me a better learning chance to see how they work on an in-depth view to help to support them in a better way.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. Well, overall, with the project, it's still something that's in progress at the moment, but we were really amazed as a team at the energy and the buzz that it actually generated. And Joe's kind of being quite humble in saying that they just spent more time to finish the project. But what we saw quite consistently was that people were really passionate about the problems that we threw at them and this kind of new way of thinking. And, it was really positive to see this and for us to actually celebrate that learning journey. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me was to get over that hump of being afraid of failure and, really to think about what is the journey and to enjoy that. And so that how can we actually then apply these concepts to a wider setting rather than just, what is the immediate outcome, which we're quite focused on doing in the past. But yeah, I think on a Kennedy side, have you guys got any kind of thoughts from a collaboration perspective?
We don't have that sort of thing, but we have a similar way of providing a platform to tap into the ideas of the younger generation and breaking down hierarchies as well, because there's no shying away from saying that most of the time in organizations it's your management level traveling, going to meet counterparts in other offices, flying here and there, and a lot of the times the juniors don't get that opportunity. So in fact, adopting an idea from an associate in our Thailand office and turning it into a reality, we introduced the Connect program. So there's two elements to Connect. So there's Connect Exchange, which is a short-term 2-week exchange program for our lawyers, where you exchange with someone in another offices in your same practice area, but you continue to do the work that you're supposed to do. So, working in New York, maybe you have to work odd hours. But it gives our colleagues the opportunity to build connections with their colleagues overseas, understand different cultures, different generations, and to really connect as a firm. But the one which we have seen more take up on is Connect Leave, which unfortunately, given COVID, it hasn't been that highly utilized, but it's very popular. And essentially, our colleagues, lawyers, support staff, from top to bottom are allowed 5 days where they can work from another office and tag that along to whatever holiday that they're having. I haven't yet used it, but if I get to travel, I'd certainly like to work 5 days in another office. And I suppose you would too, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, kind of wish we have a Japan office, but anyway. Actually, next year I do have certain errands to run in Manchester in the UK, which I learned where Joe spent a good amount of time at, so I'm going to ask him for recommendations and whatnot. But anyway, it was quite good because otherwise I would have taken sort of 2 weeks off work to actually run that errand. But now that there are these programs available, I can literally work at the Manchester office, get to know the people over there. Sort of being a global law firm, that's actually quite important to me to be able to sort of connect with people from other offices, not just Asia Pacific in general, for example, and to meet perhaps the cyber team over there, which is quite sort of interesting for me. So yeah, very much welcoming these ideas and subject to approval, of course.
Well, we know who you need to ask for that.
Approved.
Approved. Very good. Good answer. So next, I actually want to dive into the panel's thoughts on whether people feel safe to be themselves at work, and whether they should be themselves at work. So why don't we start off maybe with Joe?
Yeah. So before working in Allied World, I kind of worked in takeaways and restaurants in the UK. So I worked in about 4 or 5 different takeaways and restaurants as well. And we kind of work in a team of 10 people. So the way that I treat everyone in the restaurant is like I treat them as my family. We kind of see them 2 o'clock until 11 o'clock at night, the whole day. So I'm kind of bringing that culture with me into Allied World as well. So when I come to work, I kind of just treat everyone like family. It's just because that I would treat everyone as equal. And then there's no fear, kind of like what you might say wrong, that sort of thing. So I think it's quite nice just to treat everyone as your family. At the end of the day, you're in the office 9 till 5 every day. You probably see more your colleagues than your family. So I think that's how I bring my true self out to work.
I think we're going to turn to Vincent next.
Okay, sure. I mean, to me, as I talked a little bit about this, but the past sort of 2 years or so, I think the pandemic has really changed how people sort of view work and life, sort of what they want out of either or both of them, for example. And I think this has probably led to what the media has touted as sort of the great sort of resignation. There were sort of a significant number of moves for a good amount of period, sort of last year or so. I mean, of the upside of that sort of so-called great resignation to me is that I think it triggered sort of corporate governance or management to rethink what a modern sort of workplace should be like. And part of that realization is that companies need to create a diverse sort of work environment and inclusive sort of workspace that sort of promotes respect, equity, and inclusion. And the need to really get away from a cookie sort of cutter culture where everyone has to sort of fit a certain mold sort of idea. So at the end of the day, I think it's very important to let people sort of be who they are, to let them shine in their own right. I mean, obviously, you can be an extrovert and very into sort of speaking out loud, someone as loud as me, maybe. So, well, let them sort of speak up, do more seminars, for example, and to sort of go meet clients, for example. And thus, people who probably enjoy the more academic side of things, who like reading up cases and for a law firm setting, obviously, and to do advices, and just let them shine in that as well. I think that's really the important thing, is to sort of get away from that culture of sort of cookie cutting, really.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Vincent. That really resonates with me as well. I do think that as teams get bigger, you really have to think about what is each person's strength and how do you use them to the best of their ability and develop them, and not everyone's going to be the same. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that. I do have a story to share from quite early on in my career. So I'd been working it was pretty much my first job, and I worked there for maybe a year or so, and, you know, we worked together very closely all the time, every day, and I was on the way to a team lunch, and my manager was walking with me, and he said to me, "Hey, tell me about yourself." And I thought, that is such a weird question, because we work together every day. Why are you asking me to tell you about myself? And so I laughed about it, and he kind of said, "Well, actually, I don't know anything about you." And I realized that in that moment, I just always thought of work as somewhere that, you know, I have to be professional, separate it from my personal life, and I need to have a persona in order to progress and do well. And funnily enough, I don't actually remember what I said afterwards, so please don't ask me, but the moment has actually stayed with me until now, and it's almost 20 years later. And I still kind of take this with me, and I always try to be as authentic as I can in all my dealings with people that I work with every day. I believe that at least if I'm open to other people, then hopefully they feel more comfortable to also reciprocate. And in my view, really building that trust and the connection with my team members and with people that I work with, it can only really have a positive impact on understanding each other better, and ultimately then we work better together as well.
Thanks, Ada. I think it is really important, as you say, to be able to bring your true self to work, and it was really good that you had a mentor encouraging you to do that. You know, we obviously want our colleagues to be comfortable where they're working, and you know, one of the things that we talk about is, you know, how can we move away from the stereotypes, cookie cutter culture, and it could be as simple as, you know, allowing people to dress for the day, right? You know, lawyers, you usually expect them to be dressed in suits, white shirts, and that's kind of our our dress code today. But as people who know me know, I'm not like this when I'm in the office. You know, I'm working hard, but I'm in a jeans and a t-shirt, and that's what makes me feel comfortable. And I think as long as we dress appropriately for the right occasion, then people should be allowed to dress individually, be themselves, and be comfortable. But just back to, I guess, the mentoring point. Actually, Vincent experienced this firsthand, but I've sort of learnt about it from an industry friend, Peter Gregoire, about reverse mentoring. And the idea about reverse mentoring is to have the younger person mentor the older one. So you kind of throw two different generations together in a reverse mentoring relationship to build deeper understanding across those generations. And I think the point there really is, you know, we always value experience, but we don't realize that over-reliance on experience can actually stifle innovation. A lot of the stuff that we say is experience probably has a sell-by date because we move on from when those people had that experience. So as part of that, I think it helps foster braver cultures, because you encourage people to speak out and not keeping to themselves, thinking that that person has better experience than me and I don't have anything to contribute. So that was what I was going to say there. Thank you.
Thanks. And in preparation, we've had quite a few meetings kind of hash out all the topics we're going to talk about today. But, you know, one of the things that did come up was the challenge of talent retention in the region and in the industry particularly. And how do we keep these Gen Z particularly engaged in our workplaces for, say, 5 years or more? How do we keep them there? And, according to Deloitte's 2022 Gen Z and Millennial Survey, which I found when I was Googling as well, they surveyed over 23,000 people in 46 countries from these two generations. And what they found was that nearly 2 in 5 people surveyed said that they have actually rejected a job assignment because it did not align to their values. So, like what Vincent alluded to before, the values part is a very important part that they consider when they are thinking about taking on a new job. And also, interestingly, they also mentioned that there were, in the survey, the participants who said that they were very satisfied with their employers' societal and environmental impact, and also their employers made efforts to create a diverse and inclusive culture. These people were more likely to want to stay with their employer for more than 5 years. So perhaps that is the secret to it. So, I mean, clearly we need to look closely at some of the CSR strategies that our companies have. And Joni, you can share a bit about Kennedy's.
Sure. No, I actually did have a millennial applicant ask me in an interview what CSR policies Kennedy's had. And, you know, obviously I told her and I listed out all the things that we did or would do. But I was curious as to why she asked that, whether it was just she thought it was a question that would score points with me, and that's why she asked it. And I remember her answer because she said, "Oh, it's important to me to know that my future employer has a heart, and I don't want to work for someone that, does CSR activities, eco initiatives just for the accolades or the titles." So I certainly believe that it is something that our newer generations value and look towards when they're looking for employment. I also I asked our CSR and eco champions at work, why do you do these? Why are you so enthusiastic about all our initiatives? Because there's mooncake recycling, mooncake boxes recycling, mooncake donation. I know other insurance carriers do beach cleanup. And to them they said it's important to have CSR and eco principles and ideas ingrained in everything that we do. So they said that we keep doing it so that almost in every aspect of our life we remember to recycle, not to waste. And that's why they do it. And others said that, one of the reasons that they like being at Kennedy's is that it provides them a platform to contribute to the society and to make a difference, to make someone happier on a certain day by contributing. And they said that actually they wouldn't do it sort of personally because they wouldn't actually go out and find opportunities to contribute. But when your employer has that platform, they're very grateful for it.
That's amazing. And at Allied World, we've actually been sponsors of the TEDx Tin Hau Women event in Hong Kong since 2019. It's an event it's the only TEDx event that is dedicated to women in Hong Kong. And I've personally taken leave to attend the events myself, not as part of the company, but the speakers are just incredibly inspiring, and it's something that our company is actually very proud to be a part of each year. And again, it will be held this December if anyone wants to attend. We also are regional supporters of Habitats of Humanity, and in Hong Kong we recently went out to a school to paint the murals, basically take the kids' drawings and convert them into murals, and that was just a really nice way to kind of give back a bit of our time and help make a difference to these kids' day as well. And I think to us, CSR is not just about the events, like Joni said. It's also how we include what our employees want, from the activities themselves, also down to the selection of the partners that we decide to actually work with ultimately. And I think, given the importance of CSR, perhaps, it's a thing to throw out as a challenge. It's something that maybe we can do more as an industry collaboratively to actually do joint events, because, why is there any restriction, besides other considerations, but why is there any restriction that Kennedy's cannot join an Allied World event or Zurich or whoever, whatever it is, why can't we actually join together and do more together as an industry if this is something that is very important to the next generation, particularly? So I think we're coming up to time, and I do want to thank our panelists. But before we close off, we just want to go around and maybe each share one takeaway that we're going to act on in order to close that generational gap in the workplace. And then we'll open up the floor to any questions, or if anybody else wants to also share some of their own tips or advice, we'd be very happy to hear that. So maybe we'll start with Joni.
Sure, thanks. I guess one final point that I would make is to be more proactive, positively, consciously try and bridge the gap, because it's not necessarily something that comes naturally. So make an effort to ask even your juniors how you could do better, think differently, and then maybe you'll find surprisingly a better way of doing things.
For me, I think it's really important just to step out of your comfort zone, because you can't never stay in your own little comfort zone bubble. You have to step out of your bubble to learn more and then to engage more and bridge more connections as well.
Yeah, for me, I think it's to be sort of brave, not be afraid to ask questions, because I think there must be something to learn from anyone, from any generation, and if you never ask, you never know.
Can I give my real life example of asking? When I came here, I had 10 name cards, and I said to Vincent, I said, I've run out of stock. What am I supposed to do? Can you bring a bunch of yours? And he says, oh, why don't you just show someone your LinkedIn QR code? And I'm like, what's that? I'm like, what is that? Like, I thought I was pretty good at using LinkedIn already. It's like, huh? So, I asked a question.
I'm always on my phone, as I said.
Yes. So I asked that question, and I was educated as to how else we could connect with others.
That is scary that you're on your phone looking at LinkedIn all the time.
LinkedIn
You should
QR
be worried.
Sometimes you run out of content to look at.
It's very hard to find.
Yeah, I think for me, just listening more intently to what others want, what their needs are, and then I think it's important to respond by actually making incremental changes, which, hopefully that will build the bridges to break down the hierarchies and close the generational gap.
Thank you. Thanks, Ada.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We don't have any questions because this is offline. Sorry. Does anyone from the floor want to add anything or have any questions or comments?
Ada, we do have a question online.
Oh, you've got a question. Fantastic. Is that from you?
No.
All right. How do you handle orientation to newcomers, building a sense of belonging and fitting in, etc.? Anyone want to take that one?
I think I can take that one. As a new joiner to a company, I think the second person you approach is IT, I would think. So I think we have to be friendly, and then we cannot show them what's around the building and everything like that. And then I normally would tell the new hire that, this person is to look for this item, or within your team, this person is quite friendly and is quite open. So if you need anything, go talk to that person. So I think that's how would I do it, I think.
Thanks. For me, it's all about food. Everyone that knows me knows that I'm all about food. So we just have lunch. Like, if I have new people in my team, I go to lunch with everyone in the company. Like, we just go around to different departments, meet them, and go and have lunch and connect, essentially.
I think it's just making them feel welcome. We have this odd thing where they're supposed to write out a few things about them that get sent around by email, which kind of helps break the ice as well.
Like the dog person or cat person sort of questions. Yeah, very interesting. And you said food, I would say drinks.
Excellent. I think that's all we have. Thank you, everyone, for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, the moderator and panelists. I'd like to invite Kenny to present a token of appreciation. we'll take a group photo now. Thank you. Okay, we've come to the end of the first session. There's going to be a 20 minutes break. We will start again at 3:45 Hong Kong time with exciting presentations and a panel discussion on building a courageous, innovative culture and the risks of hybrid working post-pandemic well-being matters. Thank you, everyone, and see you in 20 minutes. Thank you.
In our profession, with the right knowledge and experience, the sky's the limit. And whilst we know the letters after your name are an important sign of standards, professionalism and trust, it's not all we're about. We're also focused on furthering our members' careers by giving you access to a community of like-minded professionals, all bound by the same code of ethics. There's newsletters, technical papers, podcasts, and so much more great content to support your learning and development, like hundreds of regular digital events, making it easy to stay on top of industry trends and to connect with members around the world through our regional offices and affiliated institutes. Plus, with membership, you can work towards chartered status for a place amongst the experts in your field. If you have knowledge to share or want to learn, you can sign up to our e-mentoring platform to connect and exchange ideas and support. And not forgetting the perks, like products and services, which can save you money in both your personal and professional lives. Get more from your membership today.
In Hong Kong, and greetings again to all participants who are joining us virtually. Welcome back to Dive In Hong Kong, Fostering Psychological Safety. We'll start the second session of Dive In today with a presentation from Lloyd's. I'd like to kindly remind all participants to use Slido and scan the QR code for any questions during the Q&A session. The QR code is located on page 4 of the agenda booklet. Also, the QR code is also in front of the chair in front of you. For those of you who are joining us online, you can use the Q&A tab at the right-hand corner of the screen. They'll connect to Slido automatically. Now, may I invite Ms. Yeung, General Representative for Hong Kong SAR Lloyd's, who will be delivering her presentation about building a courageous, innovative culture. So without further ado, I'll pass the time to Eve. Thank you.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me right? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. So, good evening. Sorry, good afternoon, everyone. So, I just want to make sure you are listening to me. So this is the second presentation we will have today about building a courageous, innovative culture. I'm Eve. I'm the new General Representative of Hong Kong SAR at Lloyd's. So before I start, I wish to thank Sisi and CII, everyone at CII, for having me today, and I'm very happy to be able to take part in this global event. Thank you. So this is the agenda for today's presentation. I've prepared a very short presentation, so don't worry. In the next 15 to 20 minutes, we will cover the importance of creating a psychological safe culture to unleash potential, high performance, and innovation. We will also look at common barriers, creating courageous cultures, the role of the leaders and managers, and examples of some initiatives that Lloyd has taken to create an environment where everyone can thrive. So let's look at the first one. First one, we are going to look at the importance of building courageous, innovative cultures. So from the left to the right, we have like 5 boxes. So it has a positive impact on both your people and your organization to build a courageous and innovative cultures, because it helps you to have higher engagement and better collaboration between teams. It builds your employees' well-being, and also it helps you leverage the benefits of diverse perspectives and also experiences. It will allow you to spot risks and concerns and leads to better decision making. People have ideas, and the company wants to hear them, but somewhere it breaks down. So this disconnection stifles innovation, and the reason varied. We know that, right? In the next slide, let's look at where the common barrier to creating a courageous culture. I'm going to show you a survey result, which we take on in the market. We want this annual culture survey for the market. The culture survey is open to people who work in the Lloyd's market, which includes the managing agents, brokers, members agents, and corporation employees. There are around 40,000 people. So this survey assesses the strength of components of a healthy and effective organizational culture. The survey includes the following, like looking at the honesty, openness, respect, leadership, ethics, trust, motivation, inclusion, and more specifically, a deep dive in behavior and speaking up. On this slide, you will see the speaking up results for the market in 2022. Speaking up is about the ability to raise concerns when you observe something inappropriate or unethical behavior in the organization. Raising concern ranging from informal small day-to-day concerns that you could talk to your managers through the or to the formal raising of bigger issues of grievances related to poor behavior, like harassment, like bullying, and also the whistleblowing. Let's look at the figures now. The pie chart on the left-hand side tells us how people feel speaking up in their organization. So the figure has improved, in fact. So this gray square telling us that the percentage has improved by 3% as compared to 2 years ago. It's not a big difference, but an improvement is better than the other way around, right? So 78% are comfortable raising concerns in their organization. So, I know it is very, very small, the words. I can just let you know that some of the barriers behind not speaking up includes the fact that they don't trust the process to be confidential, or it will be held against them, or it will make them look bad. I think it is very common and sensible, very sensible. Therefore, that's the reason why we need to do more. We need to ensure that we give the confidence, we give to gain the trust from the employees to speak up when they have any concerns about behaviors in the firm. Okay, so this is the next slide. Here we will look at how we can build courageous, innovative culture. Again, from the left to the right. In order to build the courageous cultures, you have to start with building relationships. So take the time to get to know your colleagues and what drives them or motivate them. And you also have to be willing to empower them and extend the trust. Be open and curious. Always ask questions and welcome feedbacks. And encourage different points of views. Of course, it is also, or maybe most important, that you need to act on the feedback. To create courageous, innovative culture, you have to be willing to be vulnerable. Because you might make mistakes, you have to take risks, you have to try out new ideas. And so it is most important is to speak up and to listen up. Here we are going to look at some tips. I think the tips will be quite standard. You might see and hear from all the presentation or the discussion earlier today. But honestly, it is very good that all of you have already done something very right. That is number 3, attend D&I events, because you are all here, and also including the audience attended online. So very quickly, maybe we can just go through it, because the words are also quite small. The team meetings. It is the idea to have everyone, to ensure everyone to have the opportunity to contribute at the team meetings. But in addition to that, don't forget about to have the check-in one-on-one meetings with your colleagues. In private, the conversation could be more, you can discover more about your colleagues, knowing anything concerns them in the workplace or in their personal life. And definitely, gender should be provided in advance, not to catch your colleagues in off guard, right? And then the second one is encourage challenge. We already looked at that already. Feedbacks and also exchange of ideas. So in some of the particular areas, we need to again pay more attention. That is about the recruitment. When recruiting, make sure to use the inclusive job descriptions guidance, and also to make sure you have a diverse range of applicants. And at the time when evaluating performance of your colleagues, make sure to be more or be totally objective. And everyone needs to understand what the scale, what does it mean, and rationale behind asking all the questions or providing their goals and their achievements. The last 2 is simple, but it's quite hard to do really in our real life. Don't be a bystander. So you need to be, you may say, need to be brave to speak up. When you witness or hear behavior not in line with the organization's values, or you think that somebody has been being treated unfairly, then of course you need to raise it with the right person and at the moment, not waiting for others to raise it first and then I second, something like that. It is not helping. The last one is if you are not sure about describing someone, you just ask and be engaged in the diversity and inclusion discussions. So these are the few tips you can do as a line manager to create a positive environment that allow everyone to thrive. Because why it is so important, the leaders set the tone, the role models' behaviors, and they also have a big impact on the well-being of their team members as well as the team dynamics. Okay, so here I'm pleased to be able to share with you a case study. That is how Lloyd's approach to building courageous, innovative cultures. Lloyd's has been working on this very hard for many years already. So at this time, we have quite a lot of the examples. I hope that they are good examples for all of the peer companies. But in fact, we have been working on it for many years in order to achieve it. We are still working on it, make sure that we have a better future and make sure that the company meets the expectations of all the employees. So one of the example I want to raise is our values. Our values represent the essence of working in cooperation when we are at our best. How we interact with each other and our stakeholders. One of our values is being brave. The first one, the yellow symbol. Being brave, which is about having the confidence to challenge and innovate. I remember one of our panel members mentioned about brave, being brave as well. And we have created a number of channels and focus groups, such as the employee, the left-hand corner at the bottom, the employee change forum. So it is an informed, trusted organizational culture that is building a bridge between the executives and the employees. Each function have their own representative who contributes on behalf of their function, considering a broad range of the topics. In addition, we have the Lloyd's Together Network, the middle. I captured the website, the screenshot. The Lloyd's Together Network is an umbrella diversity and inclusion network for Lloyd's Corporation to maximize engagement, and it aims to contribute to creating a sense of community and inclusion. Educate and raise awareness, encourage and colleagues across the organization, and aligns to the D&I agenda. It is sponsored by Bob James, a senior executive at Lloyd's, and incorporates 7 communities that focus on various diversity strengths, such as multicultural awareness community, the disability community, the gender community, and the families community, and so forth. So through the hard work of our members of these communities, all the needs and concerns, or majority of the needs and concerns of our colleagues are reflected and communicated to the management, which helps a lot in enhancing our employee well-being policies within Lloyd's. We are also aim to change perceptions of the industry, so that it become destination of choice for global talent. We measure our culture through our annual culture survey, which we have already seen one of the results of Speaking Up. So which will definitely will be followed by action plan on corporation level functional briefings and track and report progress quarterly. So this actually brings us to the end of this presentation. We need to create a psychologically safe culture where people may feel more comfortable to speak up, to ask questions, and challenge. This isn't all big grievances. It's small things in the day-to-day lives. Okay, I hope this short presentation gives you some ideas of how to build and maintain a courageous, innovative culture within your organization. Thank you very much. Time is up, or do we take
We have a
questions?
question. Well, first of all, online. Maybe we can take the question online first.
Okay. Okay, we have a question about Regarding sending agendas in advance, people think in different ways. Some need more time. Do you think there is a way we can improve the agendas to facilitate this instead of just bullet points? For example, supplying summaries of key points and what we would like people to think about in advance. Well, I think agenda can be in any form, right? Agenda can be in any form, and also I believe that it's very much depend on the recipient. So if your recipient is a very outspoken person, then I think that you will find that you can go more direct and tell all the points exactly what you want to discuss, or even you want to raise some of the concern about his or her working performance, then or whatever, then maybe it depends on the people who receive the message, whether it is appropriate and whether it will create a hard feeling for them. So, but for I think there is not a rule of thumb on this one, and definitely, in fact, I can see this. The sender of this question is a very considerate person. Must be a very good line manager, because he would take this into account, into consideration, whether what is the right form or what is the best form to communicate with the colleagues. I hope I have already respond to this question. Actually, it's a sharing, because there is, as I mentioned, I believe that there is no such a perfect answer or model answer to these questions. So, anyone would also like to raise a question? Here? No?
Okay,
Okay.
That's the case. Well, thank you very much for Eve's presentation.
Yeah.
And I'd like to invite Kenny to come on stage to present a token of appreciation. Okay, thank you very much, Eve. And now we move on to the last session of today's Dive in Hong Kong panel discussion on the rise of hybrid working post-pandemic wellbeing matters, moderated by Ms. Amanda Mercep, Head of Wellbeing Solutions, Asia-Pac from Aon. And I would like to invite Amanda and our distinguished panelists to also come on stage. Ms. Chinali Patel, Diversity and Inclusion Committee Chair from the British Consulate General Hong Kong. Mr. Z Lim, Head of Claims, Hong Kong Macau Claims Solution, Marsh Hong Kong, and Mr. Samuel Hong, partner from the RPC.
We in order as well per the screen. This is a dream. Thank you so much. Well, thank you everyone. It's great to be a part of the Dive In Festival, and thanks for all the coordinators and the efforts that went into putting on today. And I think I'll speak on your behalf to say we're all delighted to be speaking on this important topic of how psychological safety can be impacted and cultivated in a hybrid working environment. We're going to endeavor to keep you awake, because we know it's the end of the day, but also to explore different dimensions of psychological well-being and how it can contribute to high-performing teams, particularly in hybrid work environment. We were also fortunate enough to hear from some of the panelists today who shared on generational differences and considerations, and we'll take that a step further to look at breaking down the employee populations in different ways so that you can all hopefully go back to your organizations and take something back. And then to impart you with some practical tips in order to enhance a positive work dynamic within your organization. So let me start by quickly setting the stage. So, and thank you for the speakers who teed up psychological safety and defined. And I think it's clear that psychological safety can be complex even in a very straightforward and simple working environment. When we were all face to face, seeing each other every day did make it easier, although still presented challenges. So add on now the fact that there are shifting values in the workforce, desire for greater agency within one's jobs, drive for more human-centric work, and many of these things brought on by pandemic epiphanies, and then put hybrid work on top of all of that. So we're navigating through extremely murky waters as we turn the corner on this pandemic and introduce hybrid work into our working lives. So regardless of what your company's current arrangement is and what working model works for you here, there's no denying that working from home and hybrid work environment presents very unique challenges for both employees and employers. I think pre-pandemic, we could consider work and non-work topics as pretty separable. So there, in a lot of times, was a respect for the fact that employees had their own personal lives and you didn't necessarily need to dig. And I think it was Ada who gave the example of her boss asking a little bit about you, right? And I remember those types of conversations in my career as well. But the pandemic really forced us to look at the complete blending between work and personal lives. And as attractive as it may be to go back to that old way, this environment that we're working in is really forcing us to consider how hybrid work can continue to support the diverse and evolving needs of our workforce. So with that backdrop, I would like to turn to our esteemed panelists today. And perhaps as a start, we can introduce yourselves, would be fantastic, and also share a bit on what you think, how you define culture, because I think that's so foundational in thinking about psychological safety in a hybrid environment. So, Chinali, can I start with you?
Thank you, Amanda. And can you hear me? That's great. So I'm Chinali Patel. I'm a UK diplomat at the British Consulate General. I've been in Hong Kong for the last 3.5 years. My background is law enforcement, CS and organized crime. So human trafficking, modern slavery, child sexual exploitation, organized immigration crime. So dirty money, basically, and investigating dirty money. But at the heart of it, being an Asian woman, one of the first in the organization to take up law enforcement, diversity, inclusion, really is at the heart of what I do on a daily basis. What culture means to me, culture means values. I think values are really important. They define us in our personal capacity and professional capacity. But also, I think when you think values, we think diverse perspectives. And I think the previous panel touched on this beautifully, each of the speakers as well. And linked into that, and I think that emanates from my background, kind of, dealing with and engaging with the victims, but also in diversity inclusion perspective, is community engagement. I think we're all here today to think this is how we can come together to discuss topics and issues that matter to us. So that's kind of my definition of culture. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, thank you for that, Chinali. Hi everyone, my name is Z Lim. I'm the head of claims for Marsh Hong Kong and Macau. I've had the opportunity to work in Australia, in Singapore, and I moved to Hong Kong right at the height of the pandemic in January last year. What culture means to me? I think culture is all about the people and the values that they bring in their intangible sense. So when we're talking about people and culture, I think of words such as vision, such as empowerment, and such as collaboration. A big part about people and culture is, again, the interaction that we have with one another and the relationships that we have with one another as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam Hong from RPC. I'm an insurance lawyer. To me, very similar to what C and Chinali were saying, culture is about people. We're not setting a culture and then hire people to fit into our culture. But it's more about recognizing the differences, the different values, we talk values, the backgrounds, and what each individual can bring to the organization and build a strong culture.
Thanks so much, C. And so I've been in the well-being space for about 15 years and have had the fortune of working in nonprofit and then moving to do in-house wellness at Goldman and now do consulting. And if you ask me pre-pandemic what culture was, I would say it's the look and feel and how you're greeted when you walk into a physical office environment. It's how the floor is arranged. Are the most senior people in the corner offices? Is it open floor? Is, you know, to even the way the receptionists greet you. And I think that absent of an in-office environment throughout the course of the pandemic, employers have had to really think about what is the lifeblood of that organization. And I would agree with all the panelists' remarks, especially around it being about the people, how we treat each other, and how we create open and supportive environments. So let's talk about hybrid work. So again, whether you are a proponent or you'd like it to go away, you'd like us all to come into the office, again, there's a lot of unique challenges and opportunities around that dynamic. And I would say, you know, especially when we were all working from home, and I think we probably experienced that at various stages in the pandemic, you could have experienced things like isolation and anxiety associated with the uncertainty from the pandemic, very common. The fact that we're now, again, turning a corner and going back into the office does not mean those feelings necessarily go away. The fact that we're having to adjust and figure out what schedules make the most sense for us and then adapting that to the styles of our companies is something I think we've all particularly faced. So with that in mind, the question to the panelists, and maybe Sam, you could start by fielding this one. So how do we build a psychologically safe culture in this world of hybrid work? And has the pandemic increased inequality in the workplace?
To me, I think I've heard a lot of people saying there's a problem with not being able to have fair opportunities if you are working remotely. So a lot of people think, if I'm working remotely, then compared to people who are in the office every single day, they're more visible to the boss, more visible to management, to CEO, who they get more opportunities. To me, in order to address it, I think it has to start from management. It's a top-down approach. Whether we have a system in place giving fair opportunities to all these people. It can be as simple as having, in my company, having a document tracking each employee's capacity and also having fair performance indicators so that people know how they can perform in order to reach certain standards and indicators. To employees, certainly they cannot just sit back and wait for opportunities. People always say opportunities are reserved for those who are prepared, right? So reach out to your boss, reach out to management when you have capacity. If you want to take on more responsibilities, speak up. So it's a two-way process. It's not only the management, it's also about the employees as well.
Thanks, Sam. Maybe Chinali, do you want to follow up and add?
I think one of the biggest lessons we learned, and I'm going to be candid here, is that I think we tore up the rule book. I think pandemic taught, all organizations, including British Consulate General, some things were just not working. So the first thing is, when you think of the pandemic and at kind of the start of the pandemic, you know, when we're working from home, each staff member would be struggling with different issues, whether you've got childcare, whether you've got your carers, or whether you've got a partner, could be having kind of, special needs, etc. So it's evaluating actually what your engagement with that each employee should be, and leaders thinking of that. What do we need to put in place? Because this hasn't happened before. We haven't tried and tested this before. So that was the first thing. And secondly, I think looking out for signs that people are struggling, staff are struggling, because it's really hard to do that virtually. And I still find it difficult, if I can be honest. It's very hard to gauge that. What are the signs of discrimination, bullying, harassment? Or where are the signs of someone going through a really difficult time? And then pinpointing the resources that are available for that support system. And the third thing is really opening up, having that informal chat. Let it not be all about work. And I think we touched on this throughout the sessions today, but it's really, really important to do that. And continuing that when you're back in a hybrid work environment or you're back in office, in fairness. And I think it's really the challenge is sustaining it, just not letting be a tick box thing when it's pandemic, but it's making sure you're doing it when you're back into the office.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about when we prepped, but that trying to find those water cooler moments even when you are virtual. So a lot of times it can be uncomfortable, and it's so appealing to jump right into the agenda when you get on a call. But this is where I feel we can really model from behavior and spend time to do a vulnerable share, or even just give an update on what your weekend plans are, and create an opportunity for your team members to do the same. But in addition, I found through the course of the pandemic and after, in addition to the team meetings, I really had to be diligent about one-on-ones, and those sessions, as and when we could do them face-to-face, do that, but also just, again, have an opportunity and ask open questions on work-related to make sure that they were getting the support and guidance that they needed to be successful.
Yes, thanks for that, Amanda. We've heard some amazing points throughout the course of today's session. And just to further on those points, I was watching a TED Talk, and there was a saying that went that the music happens between the notes. And I think this is very much relevant to what we experienced during the pandemic, because the pandemic is associated with just online life. So culture in an organization is similar to that. Culture happens outside of the meetings. Culture happens when you arrive early, you have the opportunity to talk to a colleague while walking into a meeting. Culture happens when you finish the meeting, you walk out of the meeting and said, hey, Sam, I really like that point. Would you like to have lunch? Let's talk about it a little bit further. But during the pandemic, when we're stuck with the hour-time Zoom call, we get on the call, we get off the call, and then we go back to the emails. So further from what Amanda and my fellow panelists have said today, it's up to us as individuals, as leaders, and as an organization to further invest and to make a commitment. And it takes active measures to do so. It's not just about ticking the box, but it's about getting involved, and it's about thinking about those who may have been excluded throughout the process. Another really important topic which has been mentioned today has been on inclusivity. And what's the opposite of that? Having a environment where we have maybe subconscious biases. It's also been mentioned previously that we have this out of sight, out of mind kind of mentality. And as a leader, it's up to each of us to address these biases, to challenge these biases, and to take active steps to make sure that those who may not be present, either physically or virtually, still are included so they can become part of the company's culture.
That's a great point and a wonderful segue to our next question. So I think this was something that has come up throughout the course of today, but the fact that an employee, especially who may not have had the benefit of meeting people in person throughout the course of their time at the company, how are we making them feel included in the process? And it starts from, frankly, the application process and asking questions about allowing them to opt into questions around gender and sexual orientation, and disclosing whether or not they have a visibility whereby they might need support in the recruitment process. So it's often, again, an invisible process to us unless you're in the recruiting space, but cannot be overlooked, and really is the first step in an employee experience at your company if you're looking to hire that person. So let's bring in some practical examples by talking about different segments of a company's population. For the audience today, I can imagine there are HR folks, people in leadership positions, maybe some who are more junior in your career. So again, with practical tips in mind, let's explore how to advocate psychological safety and enhance a braver workforce for different employee pockets. So Chinali, how about we start with the employee life cycle? So again, thinking about everyone from the recruitment phase to even offboarding if an employee leaves the organization.
So I can perhaps give example from the British Consulate General perspective. So around recruitment, I don't know, just a show of hands, how many people actually enjoy being interviewed online virtually? None of us, right? I find it petrifying. I had to do a job interview recently for my next posting, and I can tell you it was 9:30 at night, and I was thinking, oh my God, my brain cells are not even working. How am I going to do this? So I think the first thing is virtual interviews can be even more intimidating than kind of in person. And as you know, Z was saying that virtually we don't kind of see things that we do when we're in person, having those small talk conversations. So it's even more important to keep our biases in check when you are the interview panel, making that candidate feel comfortable and ensuring that when you're asking questions, clarifying they've covered all points and things like that. And also making sure that when you're kind of doing that assessment, we're not letting our biases getting in terms of are they the right fit. You know, I often hear that, is someone the right fit within the team, within the culture? Yes, it's important, but that shouldn't be the only sole driving factor. Leadership then, when it comes to that kind of hybrid working environment, I think we reflected this when we had our Queen passing away recently. I saw my ambassador, our Consul General, with us working till midnight, making sure that people were able to sign the condolence book. That leadership, when you're visible, makes a hell of a difference. And then continuing that, reviewing processes that you're introducing, protocols that you're putting in place, I think that's really important. And as a manager, I think it's really important to reward, to recognize, to acknowledge really good effort. It takes a simple email to say, thank you for a job well done, in fairness. And virtually, you can do that by just saying and acknowledging that. And from an employee's perspective, I think it's really important to ensure that you speak up. It's not easy. I have to say, I've not always spoken up. And when I've spoken up, I've often regretted it, to be honest, because it's not easy to always speak up. But it's good to let someone know when things are not going well, but equally good to let someone know constructively when something is working well equally. So that would be my kind of key points.
Thank you for highlighting that. And I think speaking up is a key indicator of a brave work culture and environment, and it can be challenging, but without discomfort and uncertainty, sometimes change is not possible. So we have to put ourselves out there and be vocal and speak up. Sam, would you be so kind to illuminate some of the considerations for different levels of the employee population, so from juniors, seniors, and everyone in between?
Yeah, sure. I think some of the speakers alluded to it earlier. In this hybrid working mode, there's certain tension or expectation gap between seniors, managers, and employees or staff. So employees will be thinking, I think I've seen a lot of studies saying more than 90% of employees thinking when they're working at home, they're more productive and they work harder than compared to working in the office. But I think on the other hand, managers, I think more than 90% managers were thinking, you know, when people working home, they're slacking, they're not pulling the weight and all that. So there's a huge expectation gap. Going back to Chinali's point earlier, how do we address it? I think for managers, they definitely have to give more recognition to the staff, just simply by saying thank you. When they're seeing good quality of the work, thank them, acknowledging that they've been working hard, even working home. And for employees or staff, obviously, there's also there has to be a recognition of the perspective of managers. For managers, business owners, they care about transparency, they care about tracking performance, and also having face time with employees to discuss matters. So it's also important to understand managers and business owners' needs as well. So to me, it's all about respecting each other, valuing each other's contribution, and also acknowledging the different needs between the different levels of the company.
Thanks, and I would just add too, I think for managers, the importance of being able to recognize mental health issues and be able to signpost employees to resources as well. So there are a number of trainings out there. Aon creates its own, but we also partner with mental health first aid training, which is increasingly popular across the region. So certainly there are ways to be an advocate within your organization beyond just referring to an employee assistance program. So certainly ways to beef up that area. See, I think the last topic that we had discussed for this question was a generational angle. So would you help us bring us home on this question?
Thanks for that, Amanda. What you mentioned previously in terms of understanding different people's perspectives, I think that's very, very important. From a generational perspective, it is putting yourself in other people's shoes and trying to understand what different people from the organization are going through. Another example would be the gender perspective. So within Marsh, I'm part of the Women's Exchange Committee, and it might seem a little bit controversial because I actually identify as a man. But the reason why I decided to be part of this committee is because more than 50% of our workforce are female. And as a manager, more than 60% of my own team are female. So in order for me to understand what other people are going through, I need to put myself in their shoes, because you won't understand someone's story until you interact with them, until you have the opportunity to get to know them, and until you have the opportunity to hear what they have to say. A recent example of this is through the course of this committee, one of the younger females that had recently started with my organization mentioned that she felt that she was being left out. She invested a lot of time working on a project, but she finally did not get to present it when it came to the client presentation. And by sitting down and understanding what her concerns were, this, in my mind, triggered what would be known as a subconscious bias. And I encouraged her to put her hand up. I encouraged her to speak up, because I don't think this was a conscious decision that was made by her manager. And after having the opportunity to speak to the manager was actually just taken back by surprise. And they acknowledged that it was a subconscious bias. They assumed that because this younger female colleague was new to the organization, then perhaps she was a little bit timid. Perhaps she didn't feel comfortable doing the presentation. But these are assumptions that were made because they didn't have that communication. So I would encourage everyone here to put yourself in someone else's shoes, whether it's the person next to you, whether it's the person in another team, whether it's the person that you have an online relationship with and you've never really had the opportunity to sit down and talk in person. So make the effort, reach out to them, and put yourself in someone else's shoes.
That's brilliant. Thank you, C. And I think that's an important reminder that hopefully within your organization you have affinity groups or business different groups around underrepresented populations, and you don't necessarily need to identify as part of that population to be a part of those groups and be an advocate and ally for them. So really thank you for sharing your experience in that space. So let's move on to how well-being impacts culture, and a topic dear to my heart. How would you use well-being, or how would you view well-being as contributing to an employee's desire to stay at an organization, and how does that influence or improve psychological safety? So you want to start off with that one?
Thanks for that, Amanda. I think well-being is at the heart of culture, because at the end of the day, we are a people organization. So we need to understand, we need to provide the best environment to foster collaboration and to encourage individuals to work at their absolute best. So what is the opposite of an empowering environment? The opposite is exactly what Iris showed on the screen at the start of the presentation. If you remember, there were 4 quadrants, and on the bottom left-hand side was that quadrant where there was low engagement, low confidence, and fear within an individual. If we are not developing an empowering environment, then we are left with a situation where colleagues are coming to work and they are lying, hiding, or faking. They're not confident enough to put up their hand to ask for help. They're not confident to say, hey, I don't understand the question that you've given me, and they're going to go home and stress out about it. They're not confident with putting up their hand and saying, hey, I'm having a situation at home, I need some help with it. Can you be a little bit more understanding? So what we need to do as leaders is to really foster an environment. And I feel that by fostering the individuals, they will be more aligned with yourself as a leader as well as with the organization, because you're empowering to be the best person that they can be. And it is because of that interaction with them that they want to be 100% heartfelt and fulfilled to the organization.
Anything to add, Sam or Chinali?
Yeah. To me, I think I think some of the speakers mentioned something similar earlier today. I think it was Vincent talked about retaining talents is not just about giving them money, but it's also finding purpose or the well-being matters. I've seen some similar studies actually, more unique to the legal market. But nowadays, people look for purpose in the work and being valued by the firms. To me, I think that's so true, and also encouraged me to speak to the team, asking them what motivates you, what's the purpose of being a lawyer or working in the insurance industry, and all that, and also asking myself why I continue to be a lawyer. So nowadays, it's all the more important to find motivation, purpose, as opposed to other monetary or financial factors.
Yeah, and I think increasingly well-being is seen as a reason why a company, an employee would stay at a company versus going to a competitor. I think if you were looking at two packages, the same candidate, might go with the company that has a more robust parental leave or, on gym reimbursement. So there are small things like that which really can make a difference in terms of recruiting and retention. Chinali, anything to add from a well-being perspective?
I think, again, speaking on a personal note, I think the pandemic basically for all of us made us evaluate, and I think it touches on Sam's point about what exactly do we want out of work, but also thinking about it from a family perspective, from kind of, our own happiness perspective. And I think this is why, personally, I feel within the British Consulate General, we equally evaluated what works and what doesn't work. So from a HR perspective, I hadn't seen my family after a failed IVF cycle for 19 months. And I think it's the first time in a long time I'd spoken up to say, I really need to see my family. Can I just travel home, whatever happens? So I think it's questioning moments and kind of opening up to say, what isn't working? What can we do? How can we improve it? But that equally goes for obviously all employees at all levels, starting with the leadership and honest enough to have those conversations in all honesty.
Yeah, and I think we have seen employers on both sides of the spectrum in this matter. Of course, those who were more restrictive through the course of the pandemic and might not have had supportive policies. So we've all heard stories about passive-aggressive managers or people who weren't able to go home to see their families or who weren't supportive of taking medical leave during that time. And on the other side, companies who really championed people working abroad and seeing their families. And really, I would consider those as being the net winners on the other side of the pandemic. Let's close. So I think we want to, again, leave everyone with some practical takeaways from today's session. So what are some of the solutions you would recommend participants from today to take back to their companies? And how could they use those to maintain continuity in psychological safety when moving from virtual to more in-person settings? Yeah, sure.
Can I give a very simple one? I think being kind to one another. I think it's the simplest thing that we can do. I've often made the mistake of assuming that when I'm engaging with someone and they've been difficult, it's because they've been difficult. We don't know what that person or individual is going through in their lives. So I think it's really thinking from their perspective. That's the first thing, and maybe a more emotive point to kind of drive home. And second one, more practical, is really basically making sure that whatever we have achieved or continuing to achieve in our organization, we always self-reflect. Is this really going to be kind of the short-term or medium-term thing? And that starts with leaders, and I think all of us in this room as well.
Thanks, Chinali. Maybe I'll jump in there. For me, my takeaway points are to encourage inclusive behavior, and not only pay attention to what is in front of you, but make sure that you question what goes on behind the scenes as well. This is specifically important during the online, the whole cycle that we're going through with online presentations and online Zoom meetings, for example. Make sure you speak to those who may not be confident enough to put their hand up and to ask for help, because it's often the quiet ones that are the ones we need to be most concerned about. Don't always assume that everything is okay just because you're not speaking out in the meeting. We need to uncover different ways to communicate. Maybe they feel more comfortable in an email. Maybe they feel more comfortable in a Teams message. Or maybe just take them out for a coffee and just start the conversation with, hi, how you going? Or be kind, as Chinali said. Furthermore, I'd finish up by saying to get involved. It's one thing for organizations to implement these processes that encourage inclusivity and work-life balance and well-being, but it's up to us as individuals to get involved. I'm sure a lot of organizations have a lot of different types of colleague engagement groups. Women's Exchange at Marsh is one that I mentioned before. We have another one called the Friends in Need Association. And this is on a voluntary basis where individuals within the organization, they get together and they don't talk about anything to do with work. They just get together, they have a trained social worker present to teach them to pick up on the visual cues or the unspoken cues, or what to look out for in an employee that might be going through a difficult conversation. And it's as simple as going up to someone to say, are you okay? Reaching out to them, making that they have an advocate, a friend within the organization, to have someone that they can talk to.
Thanks, Yi. Lesson for me during COVID is rethinking my work-life balance approach, and more particularly think about my life goals. I think COVID or hybrid working, as we speak today, is about giving us flexibility and taking more ownership in our lifestyle and how we work. So I think gone are the days you work 9 to 5 and then go home a little bit earlier, spend time with family, but now you can have ownership in how you plan around each day. So to me, I want to have different life goals in mind and balancing them rather than just segregating work from life. I want to spend good quality time with my family. I want to learn something new. I want to spend time with friends, and work also being one of my very important life goals, and career is important to me. So hopefully by rethinking that approach and finding more purpose in why I work and how it fits into my broader life goals and ambition, I come up looking at it a whole lot differently.
Thanks for that, Sam. I'll offer 3. So first, I would consider how you and your teams work. And I think it's as easy as understanding what you need from them and what they need from you. And I think there was a question raised earlier on agendas, and love agendas, but it can't be one way. Make sure you're getting input from your teams, that you're building consensus and you're including them as part of the conversation. It will help them feel engaged and like they're part of the overall mission and goals. Second is promote and communicate. So often, especially in the wellness space, we hear companies say, we don't do anything on the wellness front. And then we ask a few questions and we find out they have an employee assistance program and health screenings and affinity groups, and they do. So think about the ways that you're packaging your resources to your employees, and think about the various touch points that you can have with them. A friend told me the other day, they just started at a new company, and they said, as part of onboarding, I found out we have an employee assistance program. It does all these amazing things. I said, where were you before? And they told me. And they also had that at their previous company. And it reminded me, we so frequently focus on the onboarding process as when you should dump everything onto the employee and expect them to remember after they've met everyone and learned all their business, their responsibilities. So think of the various touch points and programs and ways to cross-market your offerings throughout the course of an employee life cycle. And lastly, do not be a bystander. Be brave. If you see something speak up, speak to your manager, speak to leadership, be a watchdog and an ally for those around you. That's the only way we're going to create psychologically safe work environments in a hybrid space. Thank you so much. I think we have about 5 minutes to take questions, if there are any from the audience. This is exciting. Slido, thank you. Okay. The question is, employees in some Asian countries might tend to be quiet and subtle in company events and trainings. However, management might prefer to have workforce with a more outspoken style. How should we bridge this gap? It's a great question. Does anyone want to start?
That's an excellent question, by the way. So one of my key learnings coming from UK to Hong Kong is that you really need to be cognizant, as you were saying, Z, of kind of, the quiet ones, people who don't often kind of, speak up. And the way, at least I've done that, and I'm not saying this is the right way or the wrong way, but it has worked at least, is that having those one-to-one conversations. It's not about them encouraging them to speak up all the time in team meetings, because sometimes it's just their core nature, and I don't want to really force that or impose that. But I think it's very cognizant of what their strengths are. So if their strength is they're more comfortable speaking to you one-on-one, please do that. But equally, also, if they're comfortable writing something down in an email, that's a great way of communication too, to be fair, if they find that easier to do that. So I think it's what works for them, and asking them, actually, what's the best way you feel that you can communicate? And how can I help you and support you to kind of achieve that, in fairness? So it's more of a kind of a systematic, phased approach.
It's great. Great answer. Anyone else want to add?
I'll try to chip in on that, and that is an excellent question. They specifically asked about in a networking environment, for example. So this could be extremely intimidating for a lot of people. Some practical tips that I might say is surround yourself with people that you are familiar with. So when you are introduced to someone else, you don't feel that you're by yourself. And you have the support of those colleagues who you are familiar with to help you through that conversation. Gradually over time, hopefully you will feel more confidence in yourself that you are able to attend these networking events by yourself. You might even look forward to attending these networking events because you're going to meet a whole bunch of new people. You're going to learn a whole bunch of new things. And remember, it's not all about work. It's not all about the technicalities that we do on the 9 to 5. A lot of it is about what happens in between work. So just think of what you're interested in. And whatever you're interested in, I'm sure someone else in the room shares that interest with you. And if they don't, then at least they'll learn something new about you, and maybe you can learn something new about themselves as well.
Also add a couple of observations. I think with technology, there's certainly a lot more ways we can communicate ideas, not just by speaking up at a bigger event. A lot of my team members now, communicate with me on WhatsApp or Teams and all that. So now we open up a lot of new ways of communicating within the team. In terms of the bigger events and then how we can speak up and ask questions, I think still an important part of it, how you can speak up and raise your ideas and let people know your thoughts. Preparation would be key, I would say. For us, we did a lot of preparation before this panel, right? Think about the questions we want to raise and how we can exchange our ideas. So going to an event and making preparation beforehand and think about the questions before you go in may help you be able to have the confidence to speak up at those events.
Thank you, Sam. And I think that even applies to a meeting setting. So going into a meeting prepared, and for more junior team members or people who are not used to speaking up in meetings, it can be easy as having a chat after and asking their opinion and giving them positive reinforcement if it's a good shout, and giving them the opportunity to either share that over email or message, because again, a lot of it is a confidence builder and making them feel like it's a safe space that they can share their thoughts. Last question. It's kind of a good segue, similar to the previous question. In my company for remote meetings in Asia, a lot of people leave their cameras off. Does this impact building culture? If yes, how do we encourage people to feel more comfortable being on camera?
Can I just say, it's a choice. I do not like being on camera at certain stages. I genuinely think, and maybe I'm going to be kind of shocked for this, but I think it's a choice thing. It's your work, it's your home environment. Often in a home environment, we know this in Hong Kong, we're not living in big spaces. You've got children, you've got parents, you've got spouses, etc. Let's be considerate before we kind of, ask someone to go on camera. And I think secondly, it's also about, it doesn't make them any less interactive or any less kind of human if they're not going on camera either. So there are ways of doing that. As long as your communication and your comfort level with that other person is good and you sustain that, I think that's the main thing. Off camera, on camera, I don't think that should be kind of, a driving factor, but companies might shoot me for this.
And I'd say this is another opportunity to model, and maybe it's easy for me because I have Wellbeing in my title, but the vast majority of time I'm on video. I think even for our prep call, I'd just come back from the gym, I'm doing errands, no makeup, so I feel as a leader, if you get on the camera every once in a while in that state, employees will feel as though they don't have to put on face in order to do the same sometimes. Anything to add, gentlemen?
Yeah, thanks for that, Amanda and Chinali. I do think it is quite controversial what you said, but I'm glad that you said it. Hopefully, as of the recent announcements that there's no more quarantine, that we are really, really stepping into this hybrid environment where we have the opportunity to meet people in person, as well as continuing what has worked well by continuing with the Zoom calls. So there should not be any pre-assumptions that if someone is appearing online and they don't wish to put on their Zoom call, then they're not being engaged, because we also have the opportunity to meet with them and engage with them in person. And often when you're on a Zoom call, it's actually quite ridiculous because you always want to maintain eye contact, but maintaining eye contact means that you're looking up at this little dot in the top of the screen, where in actual fact, if you're maintaining eye contact, you're looking down on them because that's where their eyes are. So yeah, all I'm trying to say is that now with this new evolution of hybrid working environment, we have the opportunity to do what works best, to have those Zoom calls online with or without the camera, but also have the opportunity to meet people in person so we actually really get to know who they are.
Yeah, it's all very interesting to me. My preference actually always have camera on because I like to see the people I'm speaking to and their reaction and then the body language and all that. I find it so important. I find face-to-face interactions irreplaceable, so I always prefer that. But I also recognize different people have different choices, and obviously there will be different needs, and if they're staying home and then they've are things going on, so we shouldn't be forcing people to turn on the camera. That must be the case. But if we want to have better communication, think about other ways. Taking them out to lunch or meeting them in the office. So Zoom meetings is not the only way these days to communicate. We have to have all these new creative ways of having effective, meaningful communications.
Fantastic way to end the session. Thank you so much to fellow panelists today and to the Dive In Festival and coordinators for today's session. We really enjoyed the time. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for an insightful discussion and a lot of takeaways. I'd like to invite Kenny to come on stage to present a token of appreciation. Okay, thank you, everyone. So we're at almost the end of the dive-in session, but before we close the session, we'd like to invite Kenny again on to say a few words. Thank you, Kenny.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Today, the Hong Kong Dive-In is coming to a successful conclusion. And on behalf of the Charter Insurance Institute, I extend again a very warm welcome to you all joining the event today here and also virtually. I would like to express also my sincere thanks to all the speakers and panelists for the valuable, insightful, and thoughtful sharing. Also, many thanks to all the sponsors, volunteers, and those behind the scene, and for your contribution, participation, and the great support. Dive-In Festival is a global movement in the insurance sector to support the development of the inclusive work-safe cultures. The festival theme this year is Building Braver Cultures, focusing on how to build a workplace that truly allows people to feel psychologically safe, valued, respected, and free to express themselves authentically. We have discussed today numbers of unseen impacts of changing workforce mentality post-pandemic and how psychological safe culture relates to the company's success, accelerating the development of inclusive and belonging environment which enables everyone's safety, speaking up within the profession, extending to the wider society as united profession. Since we first support Dive-In Festival 3 years ago, we are very delighted to see how the festival has grown with support and encouragement from individuals and companies globally. We are incredibly thankful to all the festival partners of their continuous support, supporting us and helping us running today's event. There's been a lot of progress, but there's still more to do for Dive-In. The journey to an inclusive workplace doesn't stop here, and it will never stop. At the CII, we are proud to be part of the journey, to act and change for braver cultures, and we will continue supporting diversity in the profession. Thank you again for joining us today. And also, we are looking forward to seeing you at other Dive-In event in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And this comes to the end of Dive-In Hong Kong, Fostering Psychological Safety. Thank you again to all the wonderful speakers and panelists, and also for those of you who are joining us here virtually today. Look forward to seeing you in other Dive-In events, so you can check out Dive-In Festival, and that's out on the website diveinfestival.com. So thank you once again and have a great evening. Thank you.